Okay, well, hold up. Before we get started on this video, just want to convey what we're trying to get across in this video. We know if you buy a water injection kit, whack it on the car, turn the boost up, you can get intake temp benefits, EGT benefits, and hopefully a horsepower benefit. Or will you? That's what we're going to run over in this video here. What happens if you do just buy a water injection kit, shove it on your engine and hope for the best, without altering the tune-up? Well, we're going to see that exactly now. If you just put water in the engine, water 50-50 with meth, or pure methanol without altering the tune-up at all, what happens to power at peak power and at redline? A little bit on this car here. This is our Project Redline Mazda 626. It has an FD 13B turbo engine, a Garrett GDX42 turbo, a Fueltech FT600 ECU controlling everything through an auto transmission. And yeah, it's run a best of 9 for 147 mile an hour so far. Not on this setup, on a previous setup. You can see all this in our back catalogue of Project Redline episodes, a full build series on this fullBOOST channel. So make sure you subscribe if you want to see more content on this, because we'll have even more coming up in the future. But for now, let's see those results.
So we're effectively going to back it. Everything else is going to be the same?
Yeah, so we've done a run on the dyno with this car now. This engine set up on about 19 pound of boost, about 19 and a half, somewhere around there. Revved it out to about 9,000 RPM. It's a fair bit rich in the top end, but you know the fuel part of this equation won't change. So we know what it is without any water injection whatsoever. What we're hoping to do now is run it on 100% water, run it on a 50-50 blend of water and methanol, and then drain all of that and run it on 100% methanol and just see what we get there. So we've also got sensors for air temp in the manifold, but I've also got another one just post intercooler because the water injection gets injected in here. So what we'll be able to see is the difference between intake temperatures versus what the actual power shows on the screen. So yeah, we should get a fair idea on that if it's an effective upgrade for your car if it's on E85.
What was that last run, Broomy?
That was 50-50 meth and water. You can see it didn't drop off as much as the water did before, but the runs are still very rich. So they're around 10.8. We probably need to be a fair bit leaner to take advantage of the water and methanol, and we need to run a couple of more degrees timing to actually warrant a result. But this is pretty much just to show that if you were to go out and buy a water meth kit and just bolt it to your car, you are not going to get the benefit that you think you might. You might see a slight difference in EGT and slight difference in your air temps. However, your power actually probably decreased because you're not taking advantage of the benefits that it actually does, the cool intake charge. So we probably need to be running maybe 2 degrees or so, or 3 degrees more timing, and also maybe running it in the lowish 11s rather than it's very rich at the moment. It's around 10.7 to 1. So that's why when it's with just the ethanol, it's an okay sort of tune-up. It's in the ballpark. But then when we're adding the water and the water meth, we're not taking advantage of that system. So yeah, what we're going to do now is drain the water and the meth, and then just run straight methanol, just purging the system.
So Broomy, we've done a number of runs, a few mixed results. What do you think?
Yeah, so we ran with E85 with a 100% water, E85 with 50% water, 50% meth, and then E85 plus 100% methanol. We made the point at the start, we said we weren't going to touch the tune-up at all from the E85 base tune-up, which what people might do, they might see a water injection kit out there and people having great success with water injection and go, that's for me, I want that extra free 50 horsepower. I'm going to buy my water injection kit, I'm going to slap it on the car. We've pretty much shown you today that that's not what will happen. If you grab any, your water injection system and you've got your tuned car based on X amount of parameters, you'll lose power. guaranteed. You will lose power. You need to run these things.
Well, every setup we tried just then
Yeah.
made less power than not using anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they made less power than the normal tune-up because you need to run them leaner and you need to run more timing. It's as simple as that. Benefits we did see were reduced EGTs, and we did see the intake charge temperatures fall. So if people were just looking at those figures...
That was more of the stuff I was interested in seeing, because we all knew that the tune-up wouldn't be quite right, especially once we went to full methanol.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you saw there that the meth air-fuel ratio is 9.5 to 1. It's difficult because you've got two separate actual ignitable fuels there, so it will trick the air-fuel ratio sensor a bit.
Now, it made lowest peak power, but its overall power was by far the best.
Yeah, it held it all the way to Redline, which is great, but there's something you can probably do. Look at altering a duty cycle of the pump so it's only about 50% at that rev range and 100% higher, but really we needed to probably add about 2 or 3 degrees timing and pull maybe 5%, 6% of fuel out of it. It's stuff that you really need to know what CC jet you're injecting, because these water injection nozzles come in CC, so you need to know stuff like that. You need to know what size your injectors are, and then work on it there if you want it rock solid. But yeah, if you're going to run water injection, they're great systems, especially on 98 octane fuel, where you can be pretty knock limited, especially engines like your Subaru, or engines like my cast iron, cast block F350, 351 Cleveland. Great for setups like that. However, you need to have the car tuned and the engine tuned accordingly. So don't just buy your setup and bolt it on. You'll be really sorry with the actual results, and you're bummed on it. You would feel that those drop-offs, and when we just injected the water, you would feel that made like close to 100 kilowatts less, closer to the red line.
It fell off pretty quickly.
Yeah, and it went off a cliff basically. So you would notice that on the street. You'd notice, wow, this is making way less power.
Well, why don't we actually ingest some of this data and compare it back to back and actually see the differences in EGTs and everything.
Yep, we'll look at that now, and we'll give you a quick overview of all of that. Let's have a bit of a look at the actual data here. So if we start on the E85, 19 PSI tune-up, no water injection activated here. You see in the dyno graph, we made 321 rear wheel kilowatts at peak power. And the top end at 9,000 RPM, we made 300 kilowatts, so just a drop off of 21 kilowatts throughout the rev range, so holding power pretty well there. You can see here, air temperature, we had a 1.9 positive degree Celsius differential, so the temperature just after the intercooler versus in the actual plenum was 1.9 degree hotter, so it got hotter. Air fuel ratio is around 10.5. EGTs are up around the 580 mark. So if we go over to our pure water injection setup here, see peak power was 308 kilowatts, so down on what the peak power was with just no water injection. However, at 9,000 RPM, power had dropped off to 215 rear wheel kilowatts. So that's a 93 kilowatt differential. That's huge. That's a massive differential. We saw, however, intake temperatures come down by 2.6 degrees from out of the intercooler to inside the plenum because of the water. Air fuel ratio again around that 10.5 degree range, and EGT is a little bit cooler, which you'd expect at 537. So if we go over to 50/50 water injection, you'll see here, again, we had about 310 kilowatts at peak power, which is almost a similar peak power as the 100% water. We dropped off to about 230, so still an 80 rear wheel kilowatt drop in power. These are huge numbers. This car would feel unbelievably lazy. You would think something was wrong with it on the road if you were driving it. Again, air fuel ratio is around 10. This is about 10.8 here. So I think the learning's trying to pull a bit of fuel out because the methanol in here is riching the mixture up a bit. EGT's around that 530 again, so cooled off again. We're seeing the temperatures cool down even further now. So a 3.4 degree differential from plenum to after intercooler. So it's cooled down by 3.4 degrees. Now, if we go over to methanol, pure methanol, this is where it gets really interesting. So peak power was the lowest of all, is at 293 kilowatts. However, power only dropped off to 275, so it really held that power. So it was only an 18 kilowatt difference from peak power to 9,000 RPM. Now, most interesting here too is the air temperature difference from outside the intercooler to inside the plenum was 12 degrees. So 12 degrees Celsius drop in intake temp because the methanol is drawing so much heat out of the air. But the problem with it, because it is now a fuel, you're injecting more fuel, and we haven't altered the tune-up, remember. We just had our base E85 tune-up. We've added extra fuel. Look at this, we've got 9.5 air-fuel ratio, so 9.5. So, realistically, we want to be somewhere around 10.9, 11.0, somewhere in that ballpark, and we're at 9.5. So we are well and truly outside the window of the tune-up, so it's way, way too rich. Got to take into account, of course, that methanol has a different storage value than ethanol, so it was a bit different there, but you can tell that this is way, way out of the ballpark, and EGTs are about 540 degrees here as well. So, all right, so what are we learning here? We're learning that if you just go and believe the hype online about water injection kits, buy one from your local performance store, bolt it on your car, and change nothing else, you are going to lose power. In the case of just pure water, or even 50-50 water meth, you're going to lose a lot of power, a hell of a lot of power. Up to a third of your power is just gone straight out the window. So the key here, the message we're trying to convey here is that if you have a water injection kit, you're fitting it to your car, you must tune it accordingly. Leaner air fuel ratios, more ignition timing, they're mandatory. They really are. And then you'll start seeing the benefits of being able to run more boost and making even more power. So that's not what we did here. It wasn't the purpose of the video. If you want to see this car right here really take advantage of the water injection setup, you're going to have to subscribe to this channel. We're going to have more project car videos for this Project Redline rotary build here, and we're going to take it to the track and we're going to really refine that water injection system setup. Probably run full meth. I really like the results that it's giving here. So I think we run methanol injection, and we just start to really feed in some ignition timing. This thing's only got like 13 degrees at 19 PSI. That is nothing for even E85, Probably really wants more like 16 degrees at that kind of boost level. So we're already really conservative on the ignition timing just on the base ethanol tune. With methanol, maybe an extra 2 degrees on top of that. So see if we can't bump the boost up to about 30 pound of boost, maintain that 15 or so degrees, 16 degrees. And just check the air fuel ratios, tuned by EGT, and we'll send it. We'll see how we go. So, subscribe, and I'll see you on another episode on here on Full Boost.